Hi, so I've had this Trio Plus for almost 2 years now, and I've been using it as such. I've been using it for its intended purpose, but I've been going about it a different way. So we'll start at the beginning of my rig, which is this Boss Foot Volume 50. The high, the H stands for something. It's related to what pots are in it. H is for keyboard and guitar, and L is for bass uses. But I got two guitar inputs going into it. That blue cord and the black cord right next to it. The one on the far left is my is my signal going out of the pedal. And then on the left of it, that is the jack for a tuner slot. So I have an affordable tuner plugged into the side of it. So at all times, this is always tuning my guitars, whether my volume is on or off. And that works great. You can see this pedal has, it says on the left, out 1, out 2. Well, one of them is muted when the tuner is active. So when you stomp on it, they both become live. When you turn it on, one of them will cut out, and it's cleverly designed that way. However, that does me no good, especially when I can just plug it into the side of my pedal, and then I'll always have a tuner no matter what. So then in the middle of the song, just flip this down, I go mute, play my guitar, and then you can see how badly out of tune I am or am not. And roll the pedal forward, and now the sound's going back through my amp. So that left out coming out of my volume pedal, I have it going into the guitar input of my Trio Plus. So that's my guitar input. And going out of that, this is where things get complicated. The Trio Plus has an effects loop system, and it's quite well. And it's a little complicated if you use it the way I have it. But using it the way I use it is definitely the best way to use it. So how does it work? Well, here's what we got going on. So on our FX send, FX out, I got this cord plugged in. It goes into my graphic EQ from there, and my overdrive pedal, my two stomp boxes. This is where you'll want them. You'll want them right after this effects send. So then all your incoming guitar gets routed through the pedal into this effects send. And that's important because whenever you teach the band something, you need a perfectly clean guitar tone. So that's why you always need your guitar coming into that jack before anything else. You don't want any pedals before that. Pedals will go in this effects send. And depending on what amp you have, it could as well, which is what I'm doing. But you can have anything in the looper, you can have anything in the effects send. It'll just affect whatever your loop is. And that's no problem. Usually that's what people are going for. But again, only clean guitar going into the guitar in, so you can teach your band. Like I said, coming out of the effects loop, I got my stomp boxes. That's the ideal place for them. That's the best place for them. In my rig, that's more or less the only place for them, unless you want to put them in front of the guitar send. But like I said earlier, that's a really bad idea, because whenever you teach a band something, you have to turn both of these off. Whereas you can teach a band with these on, and then thanks to my Vypyr and my Sanpera pedal, I can turn my volume down on my amp. I can still teach my band something while my amp is on mute, as long as my volume pedal is turned up all the way. So you can hear it's mute. I roll this in, and now I'm coming in through the amplifier now. Going out of my stomp boxes, we go into the input of my amp, the normal input. And And then here's where it gets funny. It gets funny once again. So I had modified my amp. I put an effects loop on the back. I have a send and a return. And as long as there's something plugged in, it's using that loop. So all my sound that's going in through there, it's going in through my stomp box, my amplifiers, and my effects. And then it hits the effects loop. Where the effects loop takes it is back into the effects return. And then over here on my amp out, I have that going into my effects return on my amplifier. So I'll share a graph in the thumbnail of the video, and I'll share a link in the description for anyone who wants to see it, because the graph is extremely helpful, especially when I have nothing but black chords down here and I'm utilizing this rig to the fullest. It's a little complicated, but bear with me. Remember, I said I have the amp out on my trio going into the effects return on my amp. So that means any of the sound going, any of the guitar sound, so only my guitar sounds, only what I'm playing will go through that and back into my amp where it goes through the speaker. And the Vypyr is, sorry, not the Vypyr, the trio is neat because there is an amp out and a mixer out. So the amp out, no matter what your guitar input volume, what you're playing, will always go into this. And I have it hooked up to my amp, so it will always go to my amp. Your guitar loop will also go into your amp, unless you have something plugged into your mixer out. If you have something plugged into your mixer out, your band, your drums and your bass will always go out to whatever mixer you have plugged in. I always have this plugged into my stereo. I just don't have it on at the moment because I don't need more things on than I need. And if this is plugged in and you unplug your amp, everything switches to going into this instead. You plug them both in, they both work together. Only your guitar input goes into your guitar amp, maybe your looper, I can't remember. And then, like I said, only the drums and the bass will go into this guy. So why did I do what I do? Well, remember how I said I have two guitar inputs over here? Well, that is so I can have my Variax is one of them, which works great with my Vypyr because it's a variable instrument. Variable instrument. Geez, I can't remember what the P stood for, but variable instrument input. So I can play electric guitars through this, acoustic guitars through this, and bass guitars through this. And all I have to do is change my bank. There we go. You can see it change with me as I go through my banks. So right now I have it on acoustic. I have my Variax on acoustic. And I don't have any effects on at the moment just to keep things clean and tidy, but I always could. I can always switch to something that does have effects. I can always turn on one of my stomp boxes. And all those sounds will go through only what I'm playing, or into my looper if I'm recording a loop. And that is handy because I can do this kind of stuff. I'll try to give a demo here if it works out. So I'm playing the lead guitar part right now, and I have my trio playing everything I've pre-recorded this morning, which is the bass, drums, and my loop. And now I'm going to stop playing guitar. So I've stopped, but I still got my loop going, my bass and my drums. And then I can still edit them. You can hear that my drums have changed their timbre a little bit. So I can do that. And then I can also take my guitar with my Vypyr. I can move down a couple things, pull up an electric guitar track, switch on my stomp box. Now I have my lead guitar, as long as I take my Vypyr and switch it over to whatever guitar tone I like. Just go and put it on some electric mode and come in. And I can always record stuff like this into my looper. So that's pretty much everything I got going on. And then you can still use all the features in your Trio Plus. You can hold this and go to your next song segment. You can order your songs in any order you want. You can turn down different tracks. You can play with the tempo. And then you can also play around with the style. And it leads to hilarious results. But that's more or less everything about it. It works out pretty good. I haven't had any issues with it. The way I have it set up, these will never affect how your band learns, and they'll never overdrive your amp. With your Sanpera pedal, it's easy enough to put your guitar on mute, like I have here. But still, whatever you play, your band will learn. And the Vypyr has a looper, so you can always, if you're really good timing your foot, you can play a loop with this loop. But you have it set up like the way I have it. It's not too often you would, but if you wanted a separate layer within this song that you wanted to turn on and off, that's handy. Sometime I'm going to work into this pedal a separate standalone stop box. It'll be about yay tall, and I'll be just as wide as this, so I can sit on the bottom here. And I'll have 3 buttons on it. I'll rig it up so that I can turn on and off the volume, on and off the sound of my loop, on and off the sound of the bass, and on and off my drums. I click any of those and my drums will turn off or on, my bass will go off or on, or my loop will go off or on, while I still have the rest of the band. Instead of trying to work the volumes with my feet. You know. And like I said, you can always record a bass over this. You record a bass over this, turn your bass off, do your loop recordings of your either you play a normal guitar with this on the bass effect, or switch over to a bass bank. If I have that on a bass only bank, I can play an actual bass into this, record it as such, or like I said, you can always record something into your Vypyr loop, and then you can turn that on and off separately from your trio. What I've shown you, you see that it takes some time going between some of my amp settings, some of my stomp boxes, and then setting my guitar to the tone I want. But in reality, it goes pretty quick because I'm doing all this for you while holding a camera, and that definitely complicates things. That takes away a hand, and I need two to play with. I have my 2 feet on the ground. When I'm standing, it's a little easier, but then I don't have much to hold my camera with. But yeah, otherwise, with a little bit of practice, you can switch between anything within a second and a half's time, which is really good, because usually in in transitions of songs, you're not playing, you're not switching a guitar to a bass or vice versa within a beat. You usually have a little bit of time to spare, so you can click, 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 and you're set. And you can always plug an acoustic guitar into this rig. It's no problem. That's more or less why I have the graphic equalizer, so I can plug my acoustic in. Well, you plug your acoustic into where you normally put your electric guitar. I got this EQ set up for my acoustic, so then all I have to do is turn my tone knob on my acoustic, and I have a really good variety of sounds from there, especially if I have this on or off. Like I said, I always put this back down into an acoustic patch. And it sounds beautiful with an acoustic guitar pumped into it. And really, this is kind of the best way to use your Variax. You'll want to run this through a modeling app, specifically a Vypyr VIP, because this sounds fantastic through the acoustic channels when you're using this in acoustic modes. When using it through electric modes, yeah, it usually sounds best through the electric banks. Like I said, the beauty is I can always play a normal bass or normal acoustic guitar into this. I haven't played around with Vypyrs much. From what I found, they don't feel user friendly on the control face or the facade. Every knob just does too many things, and you never know exactly what they're doing. I find these Vypyrs a little better because they actually label everything, and yes, there are a lot of things you can do with this, but it doesn't take much to get used to them, and you can always do something about it on stage. And it's pretty neat because you can always tap one of these, and now you have full adjustability of whatever tone you're going for. It's pretty nice. You have tap tempo for delays. You have full I say full reverb control. It's all right. Pretty much just goes I think it's just like the volume level for a concert hall reverb, which is alright. If I had a reverb pedal, like a really nice Boss one, I'd put it into the mix. I think I'd be... I'd have to figure out where I want it. I think I'd want it after, right after the amp out on my trio. Because my effects loop goes in after everything but the reverb. So, yeah. Well, I'm losing my train of thought. The video is long enough, so maybe we'll call it quits for there. And yeah, like I said, I'll have a link or something to the diagram so you can see this better. Just know that it works the way I have it. If you hook it up wrong, you'll know right away either you don't get sound out of your amp or you'll get an infinite feedback situation. But that's why you follow the diagram closely. Plot out everything you want. Make sure you have plenty chords. Yeah, otherwise should be fine. So, best of luck. This is unbelievable. If you can do what I'm doing, you will be able to utilize your trio to the fullest, especially if, like I said, you can hook each of these up to an on and off switch. Control your band to the max. But yeah, I'll leave it at that for now and just end the video.